And here's where we bring you details of those headlines. Now, Minister of Roads and Highways, Alhaji Amidu Suleimani, has expressed hope that part of the sector's bills and debts will be settled when its share of the 400 million Ghana cedis for payment of ongoing capital projects is finally paid out.
Include those in the road sector and the various sectors of the economy, including electrification and other areas. So I hope part of our bills will be cleared under the 400 million. Well, it's good news. At least the pressure on us as regards to works done by our contractors, we hope that pressure will come down. One day, some of them are paid. They will go back to site and we'll all see contractors working. It's too early to say that roads will start looking. You know, road works are very expensive. Actually, the releases are going to make to the contractors are going to pay, we used to pay for works done already before they move to site. So it's not as if we are going to start any new road project. We're not starting any new road project as we have indicated. We're only going to pay for ongoing works and hope the contractors will go to site to continue with the works.
In April this year, it came to light that the Ministry of Roads and Highways was owing road contractors about 400 million Ghana cedis for works done since last year. The Road Fund Secretariat, GRFS, owed about 190 million Ghana cedis, while the Consolidated Fund owed 209 million Ghana cedis. Aside this debt, the GRFS also serviced a Social Security and National Insurance Trust SNIT loan of 194 million Ghana cedis, which is an additional burden. Government has made available 400 million cedis for payment of ongoing projects thanks to the Eurobond. The roads sector stands to be a major beneficiary, and major roads earmarked include Tetekwashi Medina Road, Sofo Lai Overpass in Kumasi, the Ho Fumo Road, Enyinem Konongo Nkoko Road, and the Asankregwa Enchi Road.
And still staying with roads, most road networks in the Upper West region are in a very poor state. The situation is even more aggravated when it rains, posing a great danger to drivers and commuters who ply them. Our reporter Yafuswa Jemfi reports that one such road, the Watumu Road, seriously hampers the transportation of foodstuff to markets around the country.
This is the 12-kilometer Watumu Road. Its bumpy nature makes commuting very difficult. When the news team traveled the road, a downpour the previous night had left many sections muddy with some portions caved in. The rains have also rendered the untarred roads impassable, blocking all forms of movement. Commuters are often left stranded as a result of the frequent rains, especially at this time of the year, as they are unable to traverse the entire 190-kilometer Tumutu-Bolga stretch.
The road is bad. As I say, you can see it. Sometimes it's difficult for us to carry our goods to the market. It takes us 2-3 days before one can send his goods to his products to market to sell and come back. And when you get to market, because of the road, you won't get car to come back immediately. Sometimes you spend 2 or 3 days.
Metro Mass Transit buses connecting Tumu and Bolgatanga sometimes have no choice than to pass the night on the road at the risk of being attacked by armed robbers.
I've been using it, but when it rains, no. It has to be constructed well. Because this road has been there since a long time, but nobody pay attention on it.
Other drivers complain about coughing out huge sums to retrieve their cars, which get stuck in the mud.
When there is, unless you park someplace before, after the rain, the place is dry before you pass. Always when you remain here, unless you go and hide bulldozer or some Zoom lion truck to come and pull you. Other than that, you just remain there.
Residents in the area are appealing to government to speed up the construction of the roads there to boost the local economy and improve the fortunes of the people. Yafusia Jemfi reporting for Joy News.
About 8 highway robbers raided 60 passengers of their cash, cell phones and other valuables on the Bokwanche Esase Ekropon Link Road in the Achuma district of the Ashanti region on Monday. The assembly member of Wabi Electoral area, Asabre Yeboah, who briefed Daily Graphic about the incident, said 3 vehicles fell victim to the robbers who subjected their passengers to severe beatings and displayed the pistols and the pump-action guns.
Well, the robbers blocked the Bokanche-Isase Link Road and launched the attack. It is reported that one of the passengers lost 17,500 Ghana cedis. A national service person who was traveling to Kenyase number 1, where he had been posted, was also robbed of 1,000 Ghana cedis, together with a certificate, cell phone, and other valuables. That's rather disturbing, but away from that particular story, civil society groups have condemned the use of violence on unarmed residents of mining communities and what has been described as illegitimate public hearings by the Environmental Protection Agency, particularly in the Bundaye, Nakaba and Prestia communities. The communities recently protested against one of such hearings.
The civil society groups are therefore calling on all mining regulatory bodies to ensure the rights of residents of mining communities are protected when regularizing the operations of mining companies. Meanwhile, the Chief Executive Officer of the Minerals Commission, Ben Ai, says his outfit will not support brutalities meted out to mining communities. The Commission, however, insists the EPA's public hearing on Golden Star Resources concession at Imbiasin Suta is legitimate, as chiefs of the community consented to it in writing.
He says the Commission will investigate the alleged assaults and dialogue with both parties to resolve their differences, but cannot terminate the license already given to Golden Star Resource Limited as proposed by some civil society groups. Now, a Togolese involved in illegal gold mining at Wasaminshia in the Amenfi Central District in the Western Region has been busted by the police for allegedly beheading his 15-year-old nephew for ritual purposes. The suspect, Godfred Petit Silevi, 22, said he committed the crime with another Togolese, Samuel Kwame Silevi, alias Hammer Boy, who is currently on the run. The incident happened in the early hours of Tuesday. They plan to use the head of the deceased, Wafa Aticho, for ritual purposes to raise 2,000 Ghana cedis in order to travel abroad. Well, according to the police in Sekondi, Godfred, who initially denied conspiring to murder and murdering his nephew, later burst into tears and confessed to the crime. The suspect said the spirit of his nephew was haunting him.
Is it worth it? Is it seriously? Is it worth it? 2,000 cedis.
He couldn't raise 2,000, so he wants to raise it quickly.
What could be the problem? Is it I don't know. There's this psyche, usually with rural folks, that you could travel abroad for what? I mean, like go abroad and do what? 2,000 cedis. Seriously, 2,000. Which part of abroad is he going to?
I don't know.
Because 2,000 cedis won't really solve the problem. If he wants to go abroad,
do you know where he's going? You don't know.
No.
So for all you know, for where he's going, he needs 2,000.
Trust me.
He probably could be going to South Africa or something.
No,
or
2,000 cedis. I doubt.
Somewhere in East Africa, and he just needs 2,000.
Unless he's going to say Nigeria or something.
No, Nigeria 2,000 be too much.
But is it worth the human life? It's so. Oh. Anyway, let's move on with the news. Now, the Jubilee partners have announced a planned halt of oil production offshore for 21 days. The suspension of production is to make way for routine maintenance of the floating production, storage and offloading platform, the FPSO Kwame Nkrumah. The facility, currently moored at the Jubilee oil field in a water depth of 1,100 meters, has been in service for 3 years and has so far produced 77 million barrels of oil as of the close of production activities offshore on Tuesday, September 10. The planned shutdown is slated for Friday, September 20, 2013.
Now, the Progressive People's Party, PPP, has initiated a legal process to reverse a court order preventing the party from embarking on a demonstration against corruption in the country. Speaking on today's big story on Joy News, William Dorkbo, a leading member of the PPP, said currently the legal team of the party has commenced proceedings at the Circuit Court in Accra and promised to fight even up to the Supreme Court to stop the police from unnecessarily preventing Ghanaians from embarking on demonstrations.
The Asantehene Otumfuo Setu II has expressed anger over allegations that he bribed some Supreme Court justices to influence the outcome of the election petition on behalf of President Mahama. A statement released by the Meisha Palace said the Asantehene is disgusted by the writer's false and malicious allegation of the Asantehene's complicity in the whole article and the subsequent comments thereof from individuals which can best be described as reprehensible and insulting. You can read the full statement on myjoyonline.com.
And away from the Asantehene, former South African president and anti-apartheid activist F.W. de Klerk says it is high time Western countries admit that they do not have perfect democracies and allow African democracies to self-evolve. Addressing an IEA-organized lecture on the theme Fostering Peace, National Cohesion and Reconciliation after the Supreme Court ruling, he also offered some suggestions on who should lead electoral reforms in the country.
It is quite understandable that the NPP was bitterly disappointed, but admirable that instead of opting for extra-constitutional actions, it referred its complaints to the courts. As we all know, the Supreme Court announced its judgment on 29 August and confirmed the electoral victory of President Mahama and the NPC. The complexity of the legal proceedings is reflected in the fact that on 3 of the 6 complaints, the Supreme Court judges were themselves quite deeply divided. However, in my view, the soundness of Ghana's commitment to democracy was reflected not primarily in the judicial process, but in the manner and grace with which its politicians and parties accepted the judgment of the Supreme Court. I want to hasten and add that I have the greatest admiration for both the American and the British democracies. But the point that I'm making is that they should not be so quick to pontificate to Africa, and that they should also accept that African countries may need to evolve their own special forms of democracy to suit the special needs of their people. In particular, it is important for African democracies, with their complex multi-ethnic, multicultural and multi-religious populations, to avoid the trap of majoritarian domination. Many of the problems that continue to beset African countries have their origins in the fact that colonial borders often encompassed widely different cultures and religions. I personally think that the Election Commission has a role to play, but it cannot lead the process of reforming the electoral process. And I have reason to believe from a discussion I had this morning that it actually itself suggests, while inviting comments, that it is not the proper body to consider such suggestions, and that IPAC, the body that you have, an informal body for multi-party discussions, maybe should play an important role in this. Seems to me a good idea. On the other hand, IPAC does not consist of experts on elections. So maybe IPAC could be the forum within which to find consensus. Electoral reform preferably should not become a party political issue of dispute. It's very important that your 2 leading parties, from my viewpoint as an outsider, should talk to each other, that the leadership should reach an agreement that electoral reform is necessary, and should reach an agreement what process to follow in order to arrive at conclusions about which reforms are necessary.
Former South African president there, meanwhile President John Kufuor, who was also at the FW de Klerk lecture, commented on some salient issues raised by the former South African leader.
The Electoral Commission is not a power unto itself. It's an organ of constitution for the people. And yes, the reformers can, but I believe the Electoral Commission merely jump-started the whole thing by asking people to send proposals for reform to it. No, perhaps it's too early yet. We are barely a week from decision. So I would expect that the parties would come with ideas. I would expect the academia would come with ideas. We are talking of professional groups, the TUC, everybody. Let people throw out. You'll find that the Electoral Commission, as independent as it must be a creature that commands trust and respect across the board. And if that's the case, how do we compose it? Who becomes a member of the commission? And for how long? That such a commission should be termed. It shouldn't be there forever and ever. Because they vote. They are human beings. They may be partial. They may become subject to influences. So we need to take time, think out properly, and then come out. But at the end of the day, the Electoral Commission should be truly neutral, independent, and then must be accountable. Because, for instance, the biometric system cost the country over $100 million. Is the commission subject to audit? And when the audit report comes, where does it go? Is the commission exposed to see that it bought the right things and it used the right things as efficiently as it should have? So there are many questions, and it shouldn't be left to the Electoral Commission to set the pace.
And that's the end of the road for the AM News. Our top story: CSOs criticize government on how it handles cases of mining brutalities. But the Minerals Commission says public hearings are a legitimate way to handle such issues.
Well, the Jubilee oil production is to stop oil production for 21 days due to scheduled maintenance works.
And 22-year-old Togolese man beheads 15-year-old nephew for money-making rituals. That's it for the AM News. Rashida Baba Kadiri will come by with some sports for you.